What is there to say about this movie that hasn't already been said? Many of you have probably seen this movie, or at least heard about it, if you're into Japanese horror movies, that is. And it is infamous for being one of the most intense Japanese horror movies out there. But unlike pure schlock horror movies, this one's not surviving purely off of shock value. While the creators of Saw and Hostel will say that Audition inspired them to make horrible torture porn movies, Audition is not a horrible torture porn movie. That's not to say that it isn't a movie with a very graphic torture scene in it, because it's Audition. This is what the movie's known for. But there's more to the movie than just seeing an innocent man tortured. The movie is adapted from a novel by Ryu Murakami, who's also known for writing Topaz 2, which was the inspiration for last episode's Love and Pop. Here's the link if you didn't watch it yet. If you've seen Audition, then you probably already know that this is a Takashi Miike film. In fact, that might have been the reason why you saw Audition if you're me. This is perhaps his most famous one, too. While Miike is known for going to complete extremes, you might be surprised to find out that the first half of this movie is completely restrained. Of course, it's all to set up the second half of this movie, where things ramp up significantly. This isn't the in-your-face Miike of Dead or Alive, and that might be why this film is more accessible than others in his catalog of movies. The movie itself is about an older Japanese man, Shigeharu, searching for a new love 7 years after his wife's death. A coworker proposes that they hold an audition for a fake film in order for Shigeharu to seek out his soulmate, and among the applicants is Asami, who might just be the one. Now, from that description alone, this really does sound like a swan dive into a pool of spikes and razor wire, and it may surprise you, but as the movie goes on, things get a lot darker. And this is what separates Audition from its peers in not just horror, but Miike movies as well. For the first part of this movie, Audition really doesn't want you to know that it's a horror movie. There are plenty of horror movies that are all about that suspense, but Audition isn't about the suspense, it's about the misdirection. If someone were to watch this movie without any of the hype or even a plot synopsis, they might actually believe it's a romantic comedy drama for the first third of the movie. And the movie knows that, and it plays off that expectation. The soundtrack for these parts would fit perfectly in a bland as hell romantic movie, and that's what makes it all the more intriguing. In fact, you can easily make a trailer for a romantic comedy out of the early parts of this movie. And that's the trap that Audition has the audience in. Or at least it would if the marketing wasn't so upfront about this being a horror movie. And that goes for both coasts. But this is all part of a larger commentary that Audition has. It's what separates it from other movies. Asami is this ideal Japanese housewife at first glance. She's quiet, loving, and obedient. And like most things, this is a misdirection that leads to one of the more infamous torture scenes in horror history. But to summarize this movie as psycho bitch tortures her boyfriend would be selling it short. We all know the harem stereotype. Girls will do anything for that bland main character. They cook for him, they clean for him, they practically shove themselves onto his dick. But imagine for a moment how insane a real girl would have to be to actually act like that. What kind of psychopath would spend every waking moment thinking about someone else and never about themselves? And that's supposed to be the ideal woman that Shigeharu is searching for. And that's exactly what Asami seems to be. That's why Audition builds itself up as a cheesy romance for the first third. Not just to smash our expectations for the latter part, but to show just how horribly played out that whole drama and stereotype really is. This is in no small part due to the performance by Ahi Shina. Audition was basically her debut role. There were some minor film projects she did beforehand, but Audition was really the breakout role there. She would later go on to other horror movies such as Tokyo Gore Police, and what might be next week's review. Internet rumors say that she actually vomited into a dog bowl as part of her method acting for Audition. Of course, the only source I have for this is IMDb, so take that with a grain of salt, and then a larger spoonful of salt. She pulls off both sides of Asami brilliantly. Her performance isn't that crazy, over-the-top psycho that you would see in a dozen other American movies. Instead, Asami always has some composure to her, no matter what horrible act she's doing at the time. But you can always tell when she's trying to act shy, alluring, or mysterious without the actress having to say a word. Of course, the male lead, Ryo Ishibashi, is fantastic as well. While he was no stranger to film before, Ryo would go on to star in Suicide Club and both American Grudge movies. He comes off as a hopeless older romantic, which again fits perfectly for the movie's theme as Shigeharu idealizes his perfect wife. The fact that these two play off each other so well is what makes the film work, and even last on repeat viewings. These two are definitely the core of what makes Audition. Audition is not a film I was eager to rewatch, not because it was bad, but because it can be too good at what it does. To first-time viewers, the first third of the movie might be a complete bore because there's no horror elements, and the hints at the darker elements to come are so minor and so woven into the whole thing that it's easy to not pick up on them. Add that along with a ending sequence that's much more intense than anything Western film had done at that time, and a lot of people are going to be turned off of this movie. But while not for the faint of heart, Audition offers much more than your average horror movie, and is required viewing for anyone interested in Japanese horror films.
Kitty, 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 kitty.